The Golden Crust Bakery had long been a cherished place in the town of Elmwood. A bustling bakery known for its magical bread and pastries. But as the bakery continued to thrive, strange stories began to surface. Customers spoke of feeling an inexplicable compulsion to visit the bakery at all hours, even in the dead of night. Soon, it was not just the visit that grew strange, but the nightmares as well. Customers reported unsettling dreams, visions of flames and hollow faces, like spirits lost in darkness. One customer claimed he saw himself trapped in the walls of the bakery, pounding desperately to escape, only to wake up drenched in sweat. These eerie occurrences were dismissed as coincidence by some, but others believed there was something darker at play. In the heart of the bakery stood Thomas, the owner. He was a tall, calm man with an effortless charm, always greeting his customers with a warm smile. People loved him not only for his kindness, but also for his generosity. He would often let elderly customers or mothers with small children skip to the front of the line. Yet, there was something hidden behind Thomas's friendly face. When no one was watching, his eyes would grow distant, and a shadow seemed to flicker across his expression, hinting at a burden he carried. Thomas's success had not always been so assured. A few years ago, the Golden Crust had been a tiny, struggling bakery that few people noticed. The depths stacked up on the counter like forgotten others. The bakery's oven was old, its shelves nearly empty, and few customers passed through its door. The once cheerful space now felt hollow, haunted by silence and the smell of day-old bread. Despite his best efforts, customers were few, and creditors were frequent visitors. Each day, the bakery seemed closer to closing its doors for good. His wife, Emily, would often sit by his side late at night, offering words of encouragement. "You've worked so hard, Thomas. Things will turn around," she'd say, her voice soft and reassuring. But despite her optimism, Thomas could feel her worry. Every day, creditors would remind him that time was running out. The thought of losing the bakery weighed heavily on him, filling him with shame and desperation. He had poured everything into this bakery, but it seemed as though his dream was slowly crumbling. One evening, after yet another disappointing day with no sales, Thomas found himself walking aimlessly through the quiet streets of Elmwood. The city seemed almost eerie at night, with long shadows stretching across the pavements. He didn't know where he was going until he heard a voice calling out to him from the darkness. A woman sat hunched on a street corner beneath a flickering street lamp. She was wrapped in tattered clothes, her face hidden beneath her hood, but her eyes, dark and ancient, stared straight into his. "I know what you seek," she whispered. "Success, fortune, hope." Thomas hesitated, but there was something magnetic about her presence. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a tiny vial filled with sparkling, glittering powder. "This," she said, holding the vial out to him, "is what you need. A pinch of this in your bread, and customers will flock to you. Wealth will be yours." His heart pounded in his chest. It seemed too good to be true, but in his desperation, Thomas didn't question it. He took the vial from her, feeling its warmth in his hand. The woman smiled, but her smile was unsettling, cold. "But remember," she warned, "every blessing has a cost." That night, Thomas returned to his bakery with the vial tucked safely in his pocket. He stood in the silent kitchen, staring at the tiny bottle. Part of him wanted to throw it away, but the thought of losing the bakery pushed him to try anything. With a deep breath, he sprinkled a pinch of the powder into the dough he had prepared earlier. The powder dissolved instantly, but a strange unease lingered in the air. The next morning, the first batch of bread that came out of the oven was unlike anything Thomas had ever smelled. Warm, rich, and enticing. He barely had time to wonder about it before the first customer arrived. A man who often passed by but rarely bought anything entered, and as he smelled the fresh bread, his face lit up in delight. "This bread, it's incredible. I've never tasted anything like it." Word spread quickly. By midday, a crowd had gathered outside the Golden Crust, drawn in by the irresistible aroma. Customers who had never paid much attention to the bakery were now buying multiple loaves, urging others to try it. They described the bread as addictive, something they couldn't stop thinking about after just one bite. As the days turned into weeks, business boomed. The long lines stretched around the block, and Thomas was able to pay off his debts with ease. Soon, he had enough money to invest in new equipment, renovate the bakery, and hire extra hands to keep up with demand. For the first time, Thomas felt the weight of financial worry lift from his shoulders. He and Emily moved into a spacious new home, and he treated her to dinners at fancy restaurants, the kind they had only ever dreamed of. To everyone else, Thomas seemed like the picture of success. He was hailed as the best baker in Elmwood, his once struggling bakery now a city landmark. But as the business grew, so did an unsettling feeling that gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the memory of the woman's words. "Every blessing has a cost." He began to notice that some customers seemed almost addicted to his bread, returning every day with desperate eyes, unable to resist its pull. Soon the stories of strange dreams began to circulate. Customers spoke of vivid, terrifying nightmares, visions of flames, hollow faces, and the eerie feeling of being trapped. Some claimed to have seen themselves locked within the bakery's walls, unable to escape. As the stories grew more disturbing, rumors spread that Thomas had stumbled upon some dark, supernatural ingredient. Thomas tried to push these thoughts out of his mind, but doubt began to creep in. Then, the nightmares visited him. The first came suddenly, dragging him out of sleep. In the dream, he was standing alone in the bakery, surrounded by stretching shadows. He noticed Clara, the mysterious woman standing in the corner, her smile wide and chilling. "These blessings don't come for free," she whispered, her voice echoing through the empty bakery. Thomas jolted awake, his heart racing. But the dreams didn't stop. Every night Clara returned, her presence growing more insistent. Each time, her voice seemed to grow colder, her smile more menacing. She reminded him of the price of his success, and every time, Thomas woke up feeling more shaken than before. Emily noticed the toll these nightmares were taking on him. He seemed distant, haunted by something he couldn't explain. One evening, after catching him lost in thought again, she urged him to take a break. "Thomas, you're not yourself," she said, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "Maybe it's time to step away for a while." But Thomas couldn't tell her the truth. He couldn't admit that he was growing afraid of his own bakery, the very place that had once been his pride and joy. He forced a smile and reassured her. But deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong. One night, as Thomas stood alone in the bakery after closing, he felt a chill in the air. He turned and saw Clara standing in the dim light. She looked different, more frail, yet her presence was more terrifying than ever. Her eyes gleamed with a strange, hungry light. "Good evening, Thomas," she whispered, her voice like cracked glass. "You look troubled." Thomas tried to back away, but Clara took a step toward him. "I've been watching you," she said, her voice soft and mocking. I can feel your guilt. You don't really understand what you've done, do you? Thomas's heart raced. The powder. I thought it was harmless. Clara's smile grew colder. There is no such thing as harmless magic, Thomas. You have bound the souls of your customers with that powder. Piece by piece, they lose themselves, feeding me. Thomas staggered back, his stomach churning. What? What have I done? Clara's smile widened. You crave success, and I provided it. For every ounce of wealth you've gained, your customers have paid the price. Thomas's mind spun. He had unknowingly sacrificed innocent people to this dark magic. His success had come at the cost of their souls. The bread they had once loved was now a curse, binding them to something far darker. I didn't know, Thomas whispered. I didn't want this. Clara shrugged, her face devoid of sympathy. Ignorance is no excuse. You accepted my help, and now there's no going back. Thomas felt trapped, his heart heavy with guilt. He had thought he was building a dream, but it had turned into a nightmare. He had to make a choice. Either continue feeding the darkness, or give it all up and return to the humble life he had once known. In the end, Thomas made the painful decision to close the bakery. He stepped outside, where the usual crowd of eager customers had gathered, and made his announcement. The Golden Crust Bakery is closing permanently, he said, his voice steady but strained. I won't be opening the doors today or any day after. The crowd was stunned. Some were angry, others devastated. Thomas apologized, but he knew it was the right choice. He couldn't continue down this dark path. The bakery's doors were locked for the last time, and Thomas and Emily disappeared from Elmwood, leaving behind only rumors and unanswered questions. The Golden Crust Bakery became the stuff of legend. Children dared each other to stand near the abandoned building, but no one ventured close after dark. Some said the bakery was haunted. Others whispered about the dark deal Thomas had made. But as Elmwood moved on, the bakeries, others whispered about the dark deal Thomas had made. But as Elmwood moved on, the bakery's legacy remained. A reminder of ambition, sacrifice, and a secret too dark to stay buried.